He put his own son in a headlock on live television, and the son smiled about it later. But what nobody is talking about, what nobody caught, is the one sentence T.I. said that night that changed everything. One sentence. Quiet. Almost missed it entirely. And when you hear what it was, you're going to understand why this family almost didn't survive 2024. Stay right here. Because this story is not what you think it is. Now look, before we get anywhere near that sentence, before I even let you close to it, we need to back all the way up. Because the internet has been spinning this story one way for years, and I'm about to spin it the way it actually happened. Not the way the blogs reported it. Not the way the comment sections dragged it. The way the people inside that room experienced it. There's a difference. The headline version. Father and son beefing. Rich boy pretending to be from the streets. Rapper dad who can't control his child. But that is not the story. The real story is about a man who looked at his own son and saw a ghost. His own ghost. Walking, talking, making the exact same mistakes. Step for step, bar for bar, arrest for arrest. And the horror of watching that happen, of knowing exactly where that road leads because you walked it yourself, because you did time at the end of it, because you buried people along the way. That horror is something that no amount of money, no amount of fame, no amount of Instagram live sessions can fix. T.I. didn't lose his temper with King Harris. He lost his hope, and that changes everything forever. And that distinction, that right there, is the key to understanding everything that followed. Let me take you back. September 2022. Atlanta. King Harris is 18 years old. Fresh. Young. The son of one of the most decorated rappers in the history of Southern hip-hop, and Tamika Tiny Harris, a woman who built her own legacy through music, television, and the kind of resilience that doesn't make headlines but holds families together. King grew up in that world. Mansions, motorcades, reality television cameras following him since he was barely old enough to talk. He was the kid on T.I. and Tiny, the family hustle that everybody loved. Cute, charming, full of energy. But by 18, something had shifted. King Harris was arrested in Atlanta. The charge? Not wearing a seatbelt. Now, on the surface, that sounds like nothing. A traffic citation, a slap on the wrist, the kind of thing that happens to young men every single day in America and gets forgotten about by dinner. But what happened after the arrest is what caught everybody's attention and what set the entire trajectory of this story into motion. A video clip surfaced online. In it, a female voice is heard explaining the charges to King. 4 counts. Not 1. Not 2. 4 separate charges attached to this arrest. And King's reaction. The moment he was released, he went on camera, laughing, and said the words that would haunt his father for the next 2 years. The king is back. Brew, I am back. I am free. Let that settle. An 18-year-old kid. A kid who grew up behind gates, who had every resource money and fame could provide, laughing at being arrested. Not just laughing. Celebrating it. Treating it like a badge of honor. And his father saw it. T.I. saw that video. And something inside him cracked. Not broke. Not yet. But cracked in a way that would never fully heal. Because T.I., Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., is a man who knows what the inside of a federal prison looks like. Not from a documentary. Not from a Jay-Z lyric. From experience. He served time in the 2000s on drug and weapons charges. Federal time. At Arkadelphia. The kind of time that changes how you breathe, how you sleep, how you look at your children when you come home and realize they grew while you were gone. So when T.I. saw his son laughing about being arrested, he didn't see a teenager being silly. He saw himself at 18. He saw the beginning of the end. He saw the first domino tipping. And he went on Instagram Live, in front of millions of people, and said the words that shook the entire internet. I know my son. You think I ain't spoke to my son? Think I ain't told my son, his mama, and they grandma's his ass going to prison. If he keep that up, his ass going to prison. Now, I need you to hear that again. Not read it. Hear it. Because the tone matters. This was not a man performing for cameras. This was not a rapper doing a publicity stunt. This was a father's voice breaking in real time while he told millions of strangers what he had already told his family in private, that his son was on a collision course with the same system that 8 years of his own life. He continued, ain't no way around it. Ain't nothing I'ma be able to do about it. Can't nobody stop it but him. I've already had the conversation. I've already made my peace with it. Made his peace with it. T.I. publicly admitted he had accepted the possibility that his son was going to prison. That's not giving up on your kid. That's a war veteran recognizing gunfire and knowing the person running toward it won't stop because you're screaming. And then came the part that broke people. The line that split the internet clean in half. T.I. said, "'Cause I know that energy. I was that energy. I know exactly how it's going to turn out." A father drawing a direct line from his own criminal past to his son's present. Not in the abstract. Not through metaphor. Through lived experience. Through the kind of knowledge that only comes from having been there, done that, and barely surviving it. The internet exploded. Some praised T.I. for keeping it real. Others called him a bad father. But both sides missed the truth. T.I. wasn't performing. He was processing grief in real time. On camera, the platform caught something raw that was never meant to be a headline. T.I. said, "King's a good kid chasing after the wrong." And then, "I trust in God to deal with it the way that he see fit." And then, "King done got all of the whoopings. He done got the punishments. He did everything as a child you can do to him. So now he gonna have to go through it and get through it." That's a father standing on a public platform, telling millions of people that his toolbox was empty. That every punishment, every conversation, every warning, every intervention he had in his arsenal had already been deployed. And none of it worked. And now the only teacher left was life itself. The streets, the system, the consequences, and the question that nobody asked. The question that should have been asked from the very beginning is this: what happens when a father who has been to prison watches his son sprint toward the same cell? What does that do to a man? What does that do to a family? Hold that question, because we're about to find out. And trust me, what comes next? You are not ready for it. Not even a little bit. Chapter 2. The Origin of the Storm. To understand the breaking point, you need to understand what King was doing before 2022. That arrest wasn't the beginning. It was the middle. Most of the world met King as a little kid on reality TV. T.I. and Tiny ran for 6 seasons. King spent his childhood being filmed, edited, and broadcast to millions. Think about what that does to a child. Every tantrum, every mistake, content. Your family's private moments are someone else's entertainment. Context matters, especially when the internet is judge, jury, and executioner. By 2020, when King was 16 years old, he was already making noise for the wrong reasons. A video surfaced of him fighting in a school bathroom. Not arguing. Fighting. Physical, hands-on, caught-on-camera fighting. And this wasn't a one-time thing. According to his own mother, Tiny Harris, King was fighting all the damn time, slap boxing in school every day like it was a sport. Tiny, who knows King better than anyone, said he was different from his siblings. Not bad, different. My sweetheart, but a terror at the same time. She said he ain't from the hood, but unlike any of his siblings, he stayed in trouble. And then she dropped a line that every parent with multiple children will feel in their bones. Every parent with multi-children know that it's always that one. That one. The child who doesn't fit the mold. The child who pushes every boundary. The child who takes the same environment, the same resources, the same love, the same discipline as their siblings and produces a completely different result. Not because the parenting failed, but because that child is wired differently. And the wiring doesn't care about your tax bracket. The pattern was locked in by 17. Fighting in school. Projecting an image at odds with his actual life. Then came the Waffle House. The incident that turned King Harris into a meme. Video footage surfaced of him confronting employees at a Waffle House in Atlanta. The cause? Pickles. Unwanted pickles on his meal. The internet had a field day. But this incident isn't just funny. It's revealing. In the video, which King himself recorded and posted to Instagram Live, because of course he did, a worker invites him to approach the cooking area to fight. And King doesn't back down. He hops on the counter. On the counter. Ready to go. Come here. I'll show you what I can do, he yelled. Repeatedly. And then, after walking outside, he continued taunting the employee and threatened to pistol whip him. Over pickles. Now, the comment sections did what comment sections do. They eviscerated him. T.I., come get your son. I know his parents raised him better than that. Use your manners. The usual. And T.I. himself responded, questioning why his son felt the need to engage with a fast food worker. He said that he and King's uncles had spoken to him about his behavior, saying, "We were perplexed by his necessity to go back and forth with the short order cook." Perplexed. That's the word T.I. used. Perplexed. Not angry. not disappointed, perplexed, like a scientist watching an experiment produce results that violate every known law of physics, like a man who has given his son every tool and watched him use none of them. The Waffle House wasn't about pickles. It was about identity. A 17-year-old from gated communities, desperately trying to prove he was hard. The internet saw a spoiled brat. I see a kid in crisis, caught between the world he was born into and the world he thinks he needs. That identity fracture drove everything next. But the worst was coming. November 2023. The Falcons game. The moment everything detonated. And when I say everything, I mean the foundation this family was standing on cracked wide open. November 26th, 2023. Falcons vs. Saints. T.I. performing in honor of hip-hop's 50th anniversary. It should have been a celebration. Instead, it became the most devastating family implosion in recent celebrity memory. And the world saw it happen because King live-streamed it on Instagram. In real time, not after, during. Because in King's world, documenting chaos was as natural as breathing. It started with a loaded question. King, have you ever woke up with a roach on your face? T.I. grew up in Bankhead, Atlanta. Zone 1. Waking up with a roach on your face isn't a metaphor there. It's a childhood memory. T.I. was asking his mansion-raised son whether he'd ever experienced that. Not to shame him, to ground him. To remind him the street identity King was claiming had a price he'd never paid. All right then, you don't know what you're talking about. But King didn't back down. This kid, and I say kid because at this point he's barely 20, did not flinch. He offered to take his parents to a bando in his neighborhood as proof of his street credentials. Do y'all want to go to the bando in my neighborhood? He said. And then he accused his own father of lying to make himself look better. He say stuff that he know not true. Silver spoon. I ain't never ate without a day in my life. Silver spoon became the epicenter. Both sides telling their own truth, because privilege isn't always about money. Sometimes the gates that protect a kid are also the walls that imprison them. Then Tiny said something that blew everything open. I'ma tell you the reason why he wanted to be over there, Tiny said, grabbing the phone. 'Cause he can suck a pacifier over there till he was 12 years old. He didn't do that at the house. He cried like a baby. On Instagram Live, with the world watching, a mother told millions her nearly adult son was sucking a pacifier until 12. Regardless of context, that statement detonated something inside King. You could watch the shift in real time. What's wrong with y'all? Why y'all doing that to me? King said, y'all know me. You know I stand on business. Why would you let someone play with me like that? That's when it went physical. T.I. grabbed his son and put him in a headlock. Full headlock. On camera. In a stadium suite. And while he had his son locked down, T.I. spoke with terrifying calm. You are embarrassing yourself and your family. Then, boy, you can't do nothing with me. The clip went everywhere. Commentary split down the middle. But what most people missed, after the altercation, King posted something devastating. I stand on business. Don't give a F who you are. I'm a grown man now. And then, the one that haunts me. If I'm a mistake, say that. Stop making the world think we love me when you don't. Be faking an image for the internet. A young man telling the world his father considers him a mistake. That the love displayed publicly is performative. Whether true or not, the fact that King believes it is devastating. That belief that you are unwanted doesn't appear from nowhere. It's built brick by brick until it becomes the lens through which you see everything. When the world looks that ugly, acting out makes sense. Fighting makes sense. Laughing at arrest makes sense. Because if nobody loves you, consequences don't matter. That's the abyss T.I. was staring into. Not misbehavior. His son was disappearing. The posts were later deleted. But screenshots live forever. Now, hold everything I just told you. Hold the Falcons game. Hold the headlock. Hold the pacifier comment. Hold the if I'm a mistake say that post. Hold all of it. Because what happened next proved that the storm was nowhere near over. In fact, the storm was just getting started. After the Falcons game blow up, King Harris didn't slow down. He accelerated. And everything T.I. had warned about in 2022, every single prediction, every fear, every late-night prayer, started coming true. One headline at a time. One arrest at a time. One viral clip at a time. October 2024. Dunwoody, Georgia. King Harris was pulled over while driving a BMW after nearly colliding with a patrol car while leaving a gas station. Now, that alone is a bad look. Nearly hitting a police car is the kind of thing that guarantees you're going to be pulled over, ID'd, and scrutinized. But it got worse. Much worse. Officers detected the odor of marijuana. They found King carrying a firearm on his hip. And when they ran his information, this is the part that should make you put your phone down and really think, they discovered a warrant. An active warrant out of Pickens County for failure to appear in court. Failure to appear. As in, King had already been charged in August 2022, around the same time as a seatbelt arrest, with speeding, knowingly driving on a suspended license, and driving under the influence of drugs. A court date had been set, an arraignment notice had been issued, and King just didn't show up, didn't go, ignored it, as if the legal system was another parent whose rules he didn't need to follow. And so an arrest warrant was issued, a bench warrant, the kind that sits in the system like a trap, waiting for the next traffic stop, the next routine encounter, the next time your name runs through the database. And that's exactly what happened in October 2024. The trap sprung. King was arrested, taken to DeKalb County Jail. 2 other individuals were in the car. 2 small baggies of marijuana were found during a vehicle search. And just like that, every word T.I. had spoken 2 years earlier, his us going to prison, ain't nothing I'ma be able to do about it, I've already made my peace with it, felt less like a warning and more like a prophecy. The trajectory was undeniable. 2020, fighting in school bathrooms. 2022, Waffle House altercation, seatbelt arrest, DUI charges. 2023, physical confrontation with his own father on live television. 2024, warrant, firearm, marijuana, another arrest. Each step lower. Each step faster, each step closer to the destination that T.I. had been screaming about since the beginning. And Tiny? Tiny was still fighting, still defending, still being the mother who refuses to let the world define her child by his worst moments. At a Charlie Wilson concert in late December 2023, just weeks after the Falcons game disaster, Tiny went on Instagram Live and said, "King be standing on business all the time. He's a good guy though. One thing about King. He don't start no stuff. He don't run from no stuff. But he don't start no stuff." A mother, doing what mothers do. Shielding, protecting, spinning the narrative even when the evidence is stacking against her position. And I don't say that to judge her. I say that because it's real. It's what real parents do. They fight for their children even when the children are making it impossible. Even when the headlines are terrible. Even when the comments are cruel. Even when they are exhausted. But the question that nobody was asking, the question that was floating just beneath the surface of every viral moment, every blog post, every comment section debate, was simple. Can King Harris be saved? Not from the streets. He wasn't really from the streets. Not from poverty. He had money. Not from lack of opportunity. He had every door in the world open to him. Can King Harris be saved from himself? From the identity crisis that was driving him to seek validation from the exact places that destroy young men? From the need to prove he was real to people who would forget him the moment he was locked up? From the intoxicating, seductive, ultimately lethal belief that being hard is more important than being alive? That was the question. And in 2024, nobody had the answer. Not T.I., not Tiny, not King himself. But something was about to happen that would change the equation entirely. Something that nobody, not the blogs, not the gossip channels, not the comment section philosophers, saw coming. Now, I need you to pay very close attention to this next part. Because this is where the story takes a turn that rewrites everything you thought you knew about T.I. and King Harris. And it starts with the unlikeliest of catalysts, Curtis James Jackson III, also known as 50 Cent. By early 2026, T.I. was in the middle of a creative resurgence. He was working on what he called his retirement album, Kill the King. The title alone is loaded, right? Kill the King. As a father whose son literally goes by King. But that's T.I. Layers on layers, meaning on meaning. The kind of artist who titles a project like a chess move and lets the audience figure out which pieces are in play. And it was working. Let Him Know, one of the early singles from the album, was dominating. #1 at urban radio. Charting on multiple platforms. For the first time in years, T.I. was being discussed for his music rather than his family drama. The narrative was shifting. The comeback was real. But then 50 Cent happened. The T.I-50 Cent beef isn't new. It's been simmering for years, decades, even. But it reignited with a fury in early 2026 when T.I. claimed he lost all respect for 50 after 50 backed out of a proposed versus battle. A battle that would have put their respective catalogs head to head. Hit for hit. Legacy versus legacy. And according to T.I., 50 ducked it. Now, whether that's true or not. And knowing 50 Cent, there are probably 17 different versions of that story, each more entertaining than the last. What happened next is what matters. Because 50 Cent, being 50 Cent, didn't respond to T.I.'s comments with words. He responded with a photo. 50 posted a photo of Tiny to his Instagram. An unflattering photo. The kind of photo that's chosen specifically to mock, to humiliate, to provoke a response. And that was the trigger. Not for T.I. For King. When 50 Cent went after Tiny, when he disrespected the one person in King's life who had never stopped defending him, never stopped fighting for him, never stopped saying he's a good kid, even when the evidence suggested otherwise. Something inside King Harris activated. And what came out was the most aggressive, most reckless, most scorched earth response anyone had seen from the young rapper. On February 22nd, 2026, King took to his Instagram stories and launched an explicit, expletive-laced rant at 50 Cent. But he didn't just defend his mother. He went somewhere that nobody, not T.I., not the internet, not even 50 Cent, expected. Want to say something about my mama. Your mama dead. Go dig her up. Stop. Just stop. Let that sit. 50 Cent's mother, Sabrina Jackson, died in 1983. Curtis was 8 years old when she died. 8. That loss. The loss of a mother when you're barely old enough to understand what death means, is a foundational wound of 50 Cent's entire life story. His music, his anger, his relentless, take no prisoners approach to the industry. All of it traces back to that moment, to that absence. And King Harris, a 20-year-old kid from a gated community in Atlanta, weaponized that pain, publicly, on Instagram stories. But he wasn't done. King posted an image of a tombstone to his stories with the caption, "This way yo mama at." And then, and this is the part that made even his supporters wince, King appeared wearing a t-shirt emblazoned with an image of 50 Cent's deceased mother. Wearing it, like a jersey, like a trophy. He even released a diss track called Made Man, attacking 50 for throwing shots at Tiny. And look, I understand the impulse. I do. Your mother has been publicly humiliated by one of the most famous men in hip-hop. Your father is in a beef. The family is under attack. And you're 20 years old, full of adrenaline, full of the same fire that got you arrested twice and fighting in Waffle House parking lots. Of course you swing. Of course you go hard. Of course you pick up whatever weapon is closest and aim it at the person threatening your family. But there are lines. And mocking someone's dead mother, not just mocking, but printing her face on a t-shirt and wearing it, that's not defending your family. That's a war crime disguised as loyalty. And the internet knew it. And T.I. knew it. T.I. himself also responded to 50 with a diss track titled The Right One. His son Domani also jumped in with bars of his own. The Harris family was mobilized. United front. Battle stations. T.I. and Sons versus the 50 Cent empire. But here's where it gets complicated. Because someone asked T.I. directly, did he enjoy watching his sons go to war for the family? And T.I.'s answer was immediate, unambiguous, and heartbreaking. No, I don't enjoy it. I spent so much time trying to get this little N off the ledge. Now he has justifiable means to undo all of the teaching that I've been teaching. Read that again, slowly, because T.I. just said something that most people scrolled right past. He said that the 50 Cent beef gave King Harris a justifiable reason to be exactly the version of himself that T.I. had been desperately trying to eliminate. The reckless version, the no-limits version, the stand on business at all costs version, the version that gets arrested, the version that makes headlines for the wrong reasons, the version that ends up in prison. For years, T.I. had been telling King to calm down, to think, to be strategic, to not let emotion drive his decisions. And then 50 Cent handed King a legitimate reason to ignore every single one of those lessons. Because how do you tell your son not to defend his own mother? You can't. And T.I. knew it. And that's what made this moment so excruciating for him. He was watching his worst nightmare unfold with a built-in justification that made it impossible to fight. When asked specifically about the t-shirt, the one with 50's deceased mother, T.I. drew the line. I said, "That's enough." When I seen that t-shirt. I'm big on treating people the way I want to be treated. I don't just be out here doing unto others how I don't want to be dealt with. But then, and this is the complexity of this man, the contradiction at the heart of his identity as both a rapper and a father, T.I. admitted to feeling a complicated kind of pride. I raise my children to be men of respect, logical, reasonable, and not to be emotional. The one thing that I am proud of is that the women and children in our families see that it's a line of men that's here against whoever. We're not here to defeat. I'm here to defend. I'm here to protect what's ours. I die in the streets about this here. Do you hear that? Can you hear the war inside that man? The father who spent years trying to pull his son back from the edge, now watching his son stand on that same edge for a reason he can't argue with. The man who preaches logic and restraint, feeling pride in the raw, unfiltered aggression that his son displayed. The ex-convict who knows what violence costs, admitting that he would die in the streets to protect his family. That's not hypocrisy. That's humanity. That's a man who contains multitudes, who is simultaneously the voice of reason and the product of chaos, who can tell his son to calm down and mean it completely, and then in the next breath feel his chest swell with pride because his boy didn't back down. And King Harris? In the middle of all of this, the diss tracks, the Dead Mama t-shirt, the Instagram rants, King was doing exactly what King always does, going to the extreme, taking it further than anyone asked him to, burning bridges that didn't need to be burned, making enemies that didn't need to be made. But here's the thing. Here's the part that nobody talks about. In the middle of all that chaos, in the middle of the 50-cent beef and the diss tracks and the viral moments, something shifted, something barely perceptible, something that wouldn't become visible for months. King Harris was fighting for something real for the first time in his life. Not for clout, not for Instagram likes, not for the street credibility he'd been chasing since he was 16. He was fighting for his mother, for his family, for something that actually mattered. And T.I. saw it, even through the disappointment, even through the fear, even through the anger about the t-shirt and the Dead Mama comments. T.I. saw his son doing something he'd never seen him do before, caring about someone other than himself. And that seed, that tiny, almost invisible seed of selflessness buried inside the chaos, was the beginning of everything that came next. So here's where this story becomes something else entirely. Because after years of headlines that read like a rap sheet, after the arrests, the viral incidents, the Waffle House, the Falcons game headlock, the 50-cent beef, the Dead Mama t-shirt, the T.I. and King Harris story takes a turn that nobody in the gossip world predicted. They reconciled, quietly, against every single odd. Against every single odd. Not publicly, not performatively, not for cameras or content or brand rehabilitation. Quietly, slowly, in the way that real healing happens, not in a single dramatic moment, but in 1,000 small ones that nobody sees. By late 2024, reports started surfacing that T.I. and King were spending more time together, not arguing, not beefing, working, creating, rebuilding. The same father and son who were in a headlock at a football game a year earlier were now in the studio together, on stage together, in conversation with each other instead of about each other. And then came the interview that changed everything. King Harris sat down for a radio interview, a real, substantive, reflective conversation, not an Instagram rant, and said something that none of the gossip channels expected. We kind of are at an understanding of who we are and what we got going on, and we're 100% working with each other. And when asked what changed, King didn't dodge. He said, it's because his dad is taking a little bit more accountability. Now, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Because in the public narrative, the one the blogs built, the one the comment sections reinforced, T.I. was a long-suffering father and King was the out-of-control son. But King is suggesting that the repair wasn't one-sided. That T.I. had to own some things too. That the fracture wasn't just King's fault. That both men had work to do. And King attributed their previous rift to something simple and profound. We're so much alike. So much alike. The same fire, the same stubbornness, the same refusal to back down, the same inability to let someone else have the last word. T.I. saw himself in King from the beginning. He said so on Instagram Live in 2022. But what he maybe didn't see, or didn't want to see, was that the likeness went both ways. King was stubborn because T.I. was stubborn. King was aggressive because T.I. was aggressive. King was fearless because T.I. was fearless. The same traits that made T.I. a legend in hip-hop were the same traits that were getting his son arrested. The apple didn't fall from the tree. The apple was the tree. And both of them had to accept that before anything could change. And T.I.? Listen to what T.I. said about his son on The Breakfast Club in December 2025. He's extremely talented, has a huge heart, and he cares a lot. 3 things. Talented, huge heart, cares a lot. Not his a problem. Not his headed to prison. Not I've made my peace with it. But talented, huge heart, cares a lot. And then T.I. said something else. Something that showed how much his own perspective had evolved. He's young, bro. If I think about where I was when I was his age, when he was running around and enjoying his youth. You can spend your youth however you want to. And that's how he chose to spend his. And that's his prerogative. His prerogative. Not his problem. Not his path to destruction. His prerogative. T.I. was giving King something he'd never given him before in public. Grace. The same grace that T.I. probably wished someone had given him when he was 20 years old, making his own mistakes in Bankhead. He believes the world should simply let the man grow up without judgment as he navigates life. Let the man grow up, not the boy. Not my son. The man. T.I. was acknowledging King's adulthood, his autonomy, his right to make his own mistakes and learn from them without the entire internet serving as judge, jury, and executioner. By December 2024, T.I. and King Harris were performing together at the iHeartRadio 96.1 Jingle Ball at State Farm Arena in Atlanta. On stage, together, father and son, making music instead of making headlines, creating instead of destroying, building instead of breaking. And instead of viral arguments, their live streams started going viral for something different. Their humor, their chemistry, the natural, unscripted dynamic between a father and son who had been through hell together and come out the other side with something that looked and probably like friendship. And then came the moment that might have been the real turning point. Not the stage performance, not the interview, not the Breakfast Club appearance, something quieter, something more permanent. King Harris threw a baby shower for his girlfriend, Big Nana, and on November 5th, 2024, he announced the birth of his son, King Jr. Fatherhood, the same force that changed T.I.'s life, that gave him something bigger than himself to fight for, something that made prison not just a punishment but a loss, something that turned abstract consequences into real, visceral, non-negotiable stakes, was now in King's life. In his arms, looking up at him with brand new eyes, and the question that everyone had been asking, can King Harris be saved? Suddenly had a different answer. Not can he be saved, but will he save himself? And the evidence, the baby, the reconciliation, the shared performances, the new maturity in his interviews, suggested that the answer might be yes. T.I. said it himself. I'ma love him all the way through whatever it is he going through. And that's a man he gonna learn his lessons. Life is going to teach him all the lessons that he need to know. And that's the most that we can do. That's the best we can ask for. Life as the teacher. That's what T.I. said back in 2022. And in 2024, life was teaching King Harris a new curriculum. Not the streets, not the system, but fatherhood, love, responsibility, the kind of lessons that don't come with a booking number. Now, remember the beginning? Remember what I told you. That T.I. said one sentence at the Falcons game. Quiet, almost missed, that changed everything? Here it is. While T.I. had King in that headlock, while the cameras were rolling, while Tiny was trying to separate them and the suite was erupting into chaos, T.I. leaned into his son's ear, close enough that the microphone barely caught it, and said, "You are embarrassing yourself and your family." That's the sentence. And I know, on the surface it sounds harsh. It sounds cold. It sounds like exactly the kind of thing a disapproving father would say to a defiant son. And most people heard it that way. Most people used it to take sides. Either T.I. was right and King deserved it, or T.I. was wrong and he was being cruel. But listen to it again. Not as a stranger, as a father, as a man who has been to federal prison, as a man who grew up in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in America, as a man who clawed his way out of poverty, built an empire, lost it, rebuilt it, went to prison, came back, and is now watching his son make the same choices that almost ended his own life. You are embarrassing yourself and your family. That's not cruelty. That's a prayer disguised as a reprimand. That's a man reaching through the chaos to grab his son's soul and shake it. That's the last weapon in the arsenal of a father who has already tried everything. The whoopings, the punishments, the conversations, the public warnings, the private pleas, and is now, in the most desperate moment he can imagine, resorting to the only thing he has left. The truth. You are embarrassing yourself and your family. 7 words. And in those 7 words is the entire T.I. and King Harris story. The love, the frustration, the fear, the pride, the helplessness, the refusal to give up even when giving up would be easier, the stubborn, irrational, completely unreasonable belief that your child can still change, can still turn around, can still become the person you know they're capable of being. And here's the thing that makes this story different from every other celebrity parent versus wayward child narrative that the internet has ever consumed. It worked. Not immediately, not cleanly, not in a straight line, but eventually, slowly, painfully, through arrests and arguments and headlocks and dead mama t-shirts and Instagram rants and deleted posts and baby showers and shared stages and quiet conversations that nobody recorded. It worked. T.I. didn't lose his son. He almost did. He came closer than any parent should ever have to. But he didn't. Because underneath all the chaos, underneath all the headlines, underneath all the viral moments that defined the T.I. King Harris saga for the consuming public, there was something that never broke. Something that bent and strained and stretched to its absolute limit, but never actually snapped. Love. Messy, complicated, contradictory, sometimes ugly, often painful, frequently embarrassing, but ultimately unbreakable love. Closing the real story. So does T.I. want his son to die? Does T.I. hate his son? Did T.I. give up on his son? No, and no. What T.I. did in the most public, most painful, most scrutinized way possible was something that millions of fathers do every single day without cameras or comment sections or blog posts. He fought for his kid. He fought with tough love and public callouts and headlocks at football games and Instagram live confessions and diss tracks and stage performances and quiet reconciliation. He fought by telling King the truth when lies would have been easier. He fought by saying his ass going to prison when pretending everything was fine would have been more comfortable. He fought by putting his son in a headlock when walking away would have been simpler. And he fought by standing next to King on stage when the world was ready to write the kid off entirely. T.I. grew up in Bankhead, Atlanta. He survived the streets. He survived federal prison. He survived the music industry. He survived public scandal. He survived the slow, agonizing erosion of watching his son make every mistake he'd already made. And King Harris, the kid who laughed when he got arrested, who fought Waffle House employees over pickles, who wore a dead woman's face on a t-shirt, who told the world his father considered him a mistake. That same King Harris is now a father himself, living, present, apparently, finally, beginning to understand what T.I. was trying to tell him all along. Life is the teacher. That's what T.I. said. And life, it seems, has finally started teaching. The Harris family is not fixed. They are not perfect. They are not a fairy tale wrapped in a reality show bow. They are a real, complicated, deeply flawed family doing what all real families do. Surviving, adapting, arguing, making up, breaking apart, coming back together, learning, growing, failing, trying again. And if there's a lesson in this story, a single takeaway from the years of chaos, the arrests, the viral moments, the headlines, and the eventual, tentative, fragile reconciliation, it's this. Sometimes the people who fight us the hardest are the people who love us the most. And sometimes the thing that looks like giving up is actually the bravest form of holding on. T.I. never gave up on King Harris. He just loved him in the only way he knew how. Loudly, messily, publicly, imperfectly, and with every single ounce of fight he had left. And based on where things stand today, the shared stages, the new baby, the softened words, the mutual accountability, it appears that prayer T.I. sent up all those years ago might finally, after everything, be getting answered. But listen to me when I tell you, this story isn't over. It's never over with the Harris family. So keep watching, keep listening, because whatever happens next, you're going to want to see it. Because the Harris family doesn't do quiet endings. They never have, and something tells me they never will. And that, right there, is the real tea.